Welcome back. I'm John Swaino.
I'm Dave Tenney.
We are Two Beards in a Bible. We are looking today again, picking up where we left off with John chapter 8. And where did you tell me to start reading?
Verse 48.
Verse 48. What would I do without you? My short memory.
You probably have a much better YouTube channel.
I don't think so. I'd probably just be staring at the camera. All right. Verse 48 in John chapter 8. Then the Jews answered and said to him, "Do we not say rightly that you are a Samaritan and have a demon?" Jesus answered, "I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. And I do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks and judges. Most assuredly I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never see death." Then the Jews said to him, "Now we know that you have a demon. Abraham is dead, and the prophets, and you say, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never taste death? Are you greater than our father Abraham, who is dead, and the prophets are dead? Who do you make yourself out to be?" Jesus answered, "If I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father who honors me, of whom you say that he is your God. Yet you have not known him, but I know him. And if I say I do not know him, I shall be a liar like you. But I do know him and keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad." Then the Jews said to him, "You are not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham?" Jesus said to them, "Most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." Then they took up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by.
Okay. Let's try to unpack some of that stuff in there.
All right.
First thing, this is just an observation I made. It says the Jews, so the Jews try to insult him. They say, "Do we not say rightly that you are a Samaritan and have a demon?" And the first thing I notice is that Jesus didn't hate the Samaritans.
Right.
I mean, in fact, he went out of his way to go talk to him, the woman at the well.
Mm-hmm.
He used the good, we have the parable of the Good Samaritan. So
Right.
he was not, he didn't have the same feeling towards the Samaritans as the Jews at that time did.
This is another example of how human beings like to put labels on people.
Yeah.
And they like to make divisions
Yeah.
amongst people. And there just is no such thing with the Lord.
Yeah.
And the Samaritans were looked down upon. They were kind of seen as half-breed, not fully Jews, and they really didn't hold a place of any high regard. And now that you mention and remind me that, he spoke with the Samaritan woman at the well, and she was shocked that he would even speak to her. That maybe that's why they lumped him in there and called him a Samaritan.
Could be.
And to them, that was some kind of a slur.
Right. Then they said, "Oh, and you have a demon."
Right.
Well, I looked this up. There, including this one, there are 7 other times that they accused him of this same thing. So this is like a thing with them. "Oh, you have a demon."
Calling good evil and evil good.
Yeah, exactly. Every time he would perform a miracle, they'd say, "Oh, no, you have a demon."
Right.
So,
Well, and in their refusal to hear the word, they're missing a big chunk of knowledge that they should have, and it's obvious from them not recognizing Christ as the Christ that they really hadn't been studying the word that they had all these years all that well. They weren't taking it into their heart, or they would have recognized who he was.
yeah, there's no way the Jews, they were looking, like I said, they were looking for a Messiah to fit their needs.
Mm-hmm.
And if we go to Isaiah chapter 53, which talks about the coming Messiah, let's see here. So let's see if this description sounds like a guy who's going to come and overthrow the Romans. And this was written hundreds of years before Jesus showed up. It says, and to whom has the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, as a root out of dry ground. He has no form or comeliness, and when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. He has borne our griefs, carried out our sorrows. We esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities. Chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we were healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of his all. I'm just stop there, but when you read that, that doesn't sound like a guy coming in and overthrowing. That's talking about the Messiah hundreds of years before Jesus showed up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So that they should have known that when the Messiah came, he wasn't going to be, King David Part 2.
Right. Yeah, the scriptures never pointed towards such a Messiah.
Right.
And you said something as you were beginning to look for that. They were looking for a Messiah to fit their needs. And I think that pretty much sums up a lot of the religious world even yet today.
True.
Is that people are looking for a Lord and Savior to fit their needs, to fit their desires, to allow them to still do the things that they want to do and feel comfortable.
Today, it seems like even more than religion, people want to turn to science to be their God and to fulfill all their needs and to be the thing that saves them.
Right.
Which is a false God.
Yeah. You think of over the years how science has changed, and we're told that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Yeah.
God never changes. It never has.
Yeah.
His word hasn't changed. And so that should give us some solace and some comfort.
Yeah. There's certainly, if we look at science that was 100 years ago,
yeah,
there's a lot of it we would say, oh my word, this is not something that we would ever follow.
We'd get a cough or something, and we'd end up covered with leeches and
exactly. or like if you ever study it was called eugenics. What happened in I think it was about 1900 to about 1940, where this idea of breeding a perfect breed of people that's not science, and the idea was you would stamp out mental problems and all these different things through breeding, but that doesn't work, and they know that now.
Right.
But that was accepted science for a period of time.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
And some of the things that you hear now about science, in 100 years they're going to go, wow.
Right.
Hopefully they're going to go, wow, we were way off then.
Right.
Maybe not.
Well, I think if history proves anything, and in the whole here, I know this might be getting off on a tangent here, but when you look at science and you look at something as simple as the scientific method, the results have to be repeatable, and you keep testing.
Yes.
You believe something is true, so you gather information and you test it and see if it's true, and then you do it again. And so, by its nature, science is going to change with the new knowledge that you gain from all of your testing.
Yeah.
But I guess to bring it around to a spiritual point, people tend to, when they look at the scriptures and they perhaps learn, maybe sometimes people dig their heels in and say, well, I don't want to go that far because, I don't want to change with the science, so to speak. I don't want to change with the new knowledge that I've gained from the scriptures because that means all of this was untrue.
Yeah. I mean, one of the side effects of becoming a Christian and believing God's word is you have to reject the idea of evolution, which so many people believe that is how we came to be here. Yet, there is no proof of it.
Right.
There's no proof.
And a place that I was, because I used to believe in evolution, was taught that from a young age and continued right up until, when I went to college. I went to a college that professed Christian values.
Didn't you go to a Methodist college?
They're Quaker.
Quaker college.
But there was really no religion involved in in much of that. But one of the professors there, the science professor that I had, he never would teach evolution. He would teach against it. So that was different. But anyway, I had come to that, and I started to go down the path of, well, maybe these things happen, but God did it using evolution. So
Yeah.
and perhaps the day that we read of in Genesis, perhaps that was really a million years. You go down those paths because that's what you're taught, and you're trying to reconcile all these things in your head. Well, how can this be true, but these things that you've been taught were true? You're trying to reconcile between those two. But really what it comes down to is that God said it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
He said he took a day to do this, or 6 days to create everything.
And in that, he defined how long a day was, too.
He did. Right. Right.
So,
he gave us the sun and the moon.
Yeah. So we know it's a literal day.
Right.
So I mean, it's that is part of becoming a Christian is you have to be able to you have to reject things that are against what the Bible says.
Right. And it really doesn't. We're going back to Isaiah. Was it chapter 55?
50.
That says that God's ways are higher.
Yes.
Than man's.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but but anyway, God's ways are higher than ours, and we just may not understand it.
Yeah.
Just that simple.
The foolishness of God is greater than the wisdom of man.
That's true.
So that's so back to our text here. So they have accused Jesus of being a Samaritan and a demon, and Jesus answers him. He says, "I do not have a demon."
Mm-hmm.
He says, "But I honor my Father, and you dishonor me."
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's very, very strong words.
Yeah, and it and later on in the scriptures, we're told, "You shall know them by their fruits."
Yes.
And we know Christ by his fruits.
Yeah.
He doesn't come down. He didn't come down here and do things against the will of the Father.
In fact, he says, "I do not seek my own glory." And Jesus came down to this earth not to set up a kingdom on earth, ever.
Mm-hmm.
Not now or not in the future. He came down to this earth to follow his Father's will. He says that, and he says here, "If anyone keeps my word, they shall never see death," alluding to that, if you abide in his word, we talked about last episode, which means a continuation.
Mm-hmm.
If we do what he says and we continue on in it, that he'll have a place for us when we die, home in heaven.
Mm-hmm. And later on, I believe it's Paul that speaks and says that it is appointed to man to die once, and then the judgment.
Yeah.
This death that that is being spoken of here by Christ is that spiritual death.
Yes.
And we have a way out of that spiritual death if we are obedient to him.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that we won't die a physical death.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're all, barring that Jesus doesn't come back to this evening
Right.
or before you die, most of us are going to die a physical death.
Right.
So the Jews get upset. They're like, "Oh, now we know you have a demon." He says, "Abraham is dead, and the prophets, and you say, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never see." So they're trying to take his words and twist them around and get him on something.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that Jesus, and this is always the tough part of arguing with Jesus, is that he can read your mind, and he's smarter than you. Right? So
Right.
you're always in a tough spot with him. It's like kids trying to argue with dad.
Right.
Don't do
Right.
it.
I was thinking of husbands arguing with their wives.
Well, don't do that either. So they asked him, "Are you greater than our father?" So they start going back to this, that their father is Abraham, who is dead, and the prophets are dead. Who do you make yourself out to be? So they're trying to get at who is he saying he is?
Yeah. And he doesn't take their bait. He doesn't put himself up on a pedestal.
No. That's why he says, "If I honor myself, my honor is nothing." You know what? And it goes to say, like, if I tell you how great of a person I am,
Right.
that doesn't hold a lot of water.
Right.
But, you know, if your neighbor tells you how great of a person I am, well, then that holds a whole lot more water.
That's why when you look at, if you're hiring somebody, you never take their word for it. You call the references.
Yeah. Yes. And if all they'll tell you is, yeah, he worked here,
Right.
then you know it's probably not good.
Right.
Probably had some problems. So he says, if I honor myself, my honor is nothing. He says, it is my Father who honors me, of whom you say that he is your God. So right there he tells them
Right.
what he's talking about. God is my Father.
Yeah. And basically another you should know better.
Yeah, you should know better. You should know better. He says, you have not known him, but I know him. And if I say I do not know him, I shall be a liar. Like he's just bringing that home that he's not telling a lie, that he is, God is his Father. And this is, I think, the key thing. He says that your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day.
Yeah.
And I think that goes all the way back to Genesis 12:3, where God made the promise to Abraham, and he said, in your seed, all the nations of the earth will be blessed.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the Jews,
Right.
but all of the nations. And I think that's, it's alluding to that.
Right.
And it also alludes to the fact that Abraham rejoiced to see my day.
Yeah.
That maybe he's still, Abraham's still with us.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Abraham would have known the plan.
Yeah.
And been right there, rejoicing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another place, I don't know where this scriptural reference is at right now, but Jesus says that, that Abraham, or that God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Mm-hmm. He's not the God of the dead.
Right.
Signifying that, these people are still alive. And of course, who were the two fellows that were with him at the Transfiguration? Moses and Elijah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there was two characters that would be thousands of years old.
Right.
But they were still alive.
Right.
So,
yeah. And it should all make sense. That should make sense to someone who has learned of the scriptures.
Yeah.
That has learned of the word as these Jews should have. That should come across as no surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Jews are confused about all of this. But he said, "You're not yet 50 years old.
Right.
You've seen Abraham."
And they're still thinking in their physically, in their lifetimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that with the Jews is, they've seen Jesus do all these different miracles, all these different things, all these good things that he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? Did that come from an evil place?
Right.
Well, no.
Well, they're trying to attribute it to that.
They are.
Yeah.
They see, oh, he heals a person. Oh, you must be from the devil.
Right. And you healed a person on the Sabbath.
Yes. Yeah.
They're looking for every little loophole, and I guess that's going back to we already talked about that, but it's a lesson for us not to get too caught up in check boxes.
The next thing we're going to talk about, which we may or may not get to in this segment, is about the blind man who received his sight, where Jesus makes the mud out of the spittle and puts on his eyes. And Jesus does that on the Sabbath. But Jesus, I went and counted it. He performed, let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 miracles Jesus performs on the Sabbath. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jews had this, really complicated law about what you could and couldn't do on the Sabbath.
Uh-huh.
One of them was you couldn't knead anything, like dough or anything else. Which is crazy.
Right.
But, they had all these extra laws they'd added. And so Jesus, he heals all these people on the Sabbath. and it's almost like he wants to show them that, I don't know whether he's trying to kind of get a little dig on them
Mm-hmm.
because they've interpreted what you're allowed to do on the Sabbath as the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone beyond what God said,
Yeah.
and that's why he has done that so many times.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not really sure what his angle was there.
Well, there's no doubt he was trying to get them to see.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of times the only way you're going to get through to some people is to dig in a little bit and cause a little bit of discomfort.
Yeah.
With in their mind.
Yes.
And cause them to come to reality, I guess.
Yeah. I know they accused Jesus and his disciples one time of doing work on the Sabbath because they were picking grain heads.
Mm-hmm.
That's work.
Right.
But that wasn't work.
Right.
They were just eating. And I actually don't mind it eating like wheat off the head, but it's not really some great dinner.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's why I think a lot of the religious world has bogged themselves down into the things that they've added.
Yes.
There's so many things that have been added that it makes it makes Christianity look like it's so difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so convoluted when in fact, again, it's just so simple.
It's a lot of times when people try to justify things that are sinful by going to some passage and so I'll pick a low-hanging fruit, alcohol use.
Mm-hmm.
People will say, well, Jesus drank wine, and blah, 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 and they'll make this big case. But I'll go back to okay, so I see you at a party, drinking a big glass of wine. Am I going to say, oh, there's a Christian over there?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I'm going to say? No. I'm going to say, oh, there's somebody that's just like everybody else.
Right.
That's not somebody who's set apart.
And for all those that like to use those passages and say that Jesus was in favor of alcohol because he made wine.
Yeah.
And if you study that, you realize that he didn't make alcoholic wine, and you realize that I don't wonder how many of those people would answer what they would answer if you asked them, does the Bible teach that it's okay to be drunkenness?
Well, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So let's logically let's go back down the path here. So what leads to a person becoming drunk?
Alcohol.
Right. And how much of it does it take to get someone to where they're drunk?
It depends.
It really does. In my younger days, having hung around people that drank quite a bit of alcohol, I realized that there are some people that after just one drink were gone.
Yeah, and other people could drink 10.
Right.
And they'd
Exactly.
be... Yeah.
And
I used to have a friend that say, I could drink a 12-pack of beer and drive a school bus. And he probably could have.
I knew a guy who could drink a case, 24 cans, and stand up straight and walk straight. It's just unreal. But others, could barely hold anything. And knowing that, and understanding that, where does addiction start? How early does it start? We just don't know.
Right.
But the logical thing to do, if the Lord tells you, do not be drunk, then never start yourself on a path that is going to ever lead you there.
Yeah. Don't do the thing that leads to drunkenness.
Yeah.
It's just a basic thing.
Right.
And I think that, there are some people that they'll say, oh, well, you're a legalist. Well, I have to say, no, you're a legalist.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
the one that's trying to look at the law so you can justify your thing that you want to do, whatever it is that's against God's word.
Right.
The Jews were doing the same. That's how the Jews got their whole separate law.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted their own control, and people today, they don't want to do what God's. They don't want to be disciples of Christ.
Yeah.
They want to be disciples of whatever thing that they want to do.
Yeah. People are no different.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same story over and over again with every generation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We better stop there. This will be a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit of a shorter one.
Okay.
This next subject is just too heavy for us to get into right now.
Well, we didn't get to the I am section.
Oh, well, good. You read that. You lead us home.
So in verse 58, it says, Jesus said to them, most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Then they took up stones to throw at him. But Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by.
That seems like an odd thing to do.
Yeah.
That wasn't a big deal.
We're getting stoned?
Or he just said, I am.
Yeah. Right. But, he was... That's those two little words, I am, they really do kind of rattle your brain a little bit.
Yes.
It's kind of saying, the way that I look at it is kind of saying, I've always been.
Yes.
I am. Equating himself with God in their minds.
Right. And the Jews would know he was referring to Genesis chapter 3, Exodus chapter 3, starting in verse 13. He says, Moses said to God, indeed, when I came to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is your name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus shall you say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you.
Yeah. And that would absolutely stick in their stick in their minds.
Yeah.
And that leads us to why they would pick up stones,
Yes.
I guess. Because again, they were accusing him of all manner of things. It's interesting that they equated him with having a demon.
Yes.
It's just that boggles the mind.
Yeah.
But there in the end, he is basically, which it is not robbery for him to equate himself with God.
No. He's part of the Godhead.
Absolutely.
Jesus is God.
Yeah, and from the beginning of the book of John, we understand that he was there in the beginning.
Yeah.
So he has every right to say that I am.
Yeah, and no doubt that, Moses may have been talking to Jesus.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I guess we'll enter there.
That winds it up.
Okay.
We got through it. So, thanks again for joining in with us. And again, as always, we hope that this has been helpful. 27 minutes for you.
Oh, man.
So,
We did it.
Until next time.
Thank you.